good evening, one and all. Good evening. John, I'm not seeing you fully, John. Yeah, yeah, that's a better position. All right, yeah.
True, I'm the
So,
only one with the ball head, you know.
you know, you should be proud. You should be proud. But so I get back on track. Yeah, there's much happening this weekend. The PNP is celebrating 80, 85th anniversary of that organization with a public session today. And a lot in the news around the People's National Party. Uh, it is obvious that the election campaign is getting getting on the road, you know. So there's a lot to talk about. And the question before us this week is the PNP and JLP are they sides of the same coin? Is there a difference between the PNP and JLP? Most Jamaican does not see a difference between the People's National Party and the Jamaica Labour Party. Okay. In this journey in answering that question, I'm going to invite viewers to take part. So at some point, we're going to allow you to pose, make comments, ask questions of the panelists. And today we have Mr. John Arton back with us again. I think this is the third time going. John is the former General Secretary of the National Union of Democratic Teachers in Jamaica, an organization that attempted to democratize the whole teaching profession in Jamaica. And that's another story. But the long and short of it, John has a wealth of knowledge and experience as an activist in Jamaica. So we figure that he would be the ideal person. Now, he's not a partisan, PNP, GLP. He's a very critical individual, and I asked him to sort of lead us into discussion. Alongside John, we have Patrick McCarthy, a veteran organizer in Kingston. Also, Las Crawford. Gentlemen, that is the approach, the format, and what have you. So, John, you want to take it from here?
Yes. Yeah, I will just have a few words. And first of all, I must tell you that Nita call me every week to come on this thing. And part of my challenge is that hustling in America is a very time-consuming thing. I don't know if you know that most people who come from Jamaica here to live, them have all 2, 3 jobs. I was lucky enough to get one job that was able to suffice for the last 5 or 6 years in the same type of industry, the insurance industry. I will say a little bit about that when I talk about my own experiences with Jamaica. Anyhow, Nita been asking me to attend, come on the panel and contribute. And part of my problem is, in speaking today, I wanted to identify a few things that I think are important in assessing what can we expect from the PNP and the JLP. Are they significantly different, if at all? And there are some indicators that I would like to use to make my judgment. Some of those indicators are fairly direct, meaning very personal to me. I left Jamaica in 2000 to go and work in the Bahamas. And part of the reason for leaving was the fact that I couldn't get a job in the private sector, because everybody knew I was part of WPJ leadership. I was known at that time as one of them communists who were known on TV that them was communists, one of the few. And also I was a union man. I unionized up the teachers, and all of that made me blacklisted. So when I left Jamaica in 2000, it's because of changing jobs and having certain difficulties. When I left university in 1974 with a degree in politics and economics, I went to work at Haile Selassie Secondary. And the reason for going there was because it's basically then and now a ghetto school. After that school, I was fired from that school because of unionizing the teachers. And I went to work briefly at KC just to hold a job. And then after 3 months at All Saints, where I couldn't qualify as a graduate teacher, they had to pay me a lower salary. But eventually I ended up at Trenchtown Comprehensive, where I worked for about 12 years. And this is one of the ways that I know how much change has taken place. I'm going to use 30 years because 2000 to now would be 23. And then just thinking back a little years, couple years, I can use 30 years without feeling any problem. So I haven't been to back to Jamaica in the last 4 years. But every time I go back, I used to go very often, and then I decide that it don't make sense spend all my money to go home. Why don't take some money and travel and see something different, experience a different world and different things that go on elsewhere. But every time I come back, I see certain things which remind me of the days I work at Trenchtown Comprehensive. And those things haven't changed. And what are the indicators of what's going on? Well, the first indicator, as I said to Nita the last time I was on this panel, was the very low level of political activity that was being experienced in the communities. Generally speaking, people were talking about, well, how I detect it and how I look at it is not like back in the days in the 80s or in the 70s where students were coming out in their thousands, and some of the changes that were going on at that time involved thousands, hundreds of people who came out to support changes that were in their interests. That's not what's happening now. A good indicator of it was in the last election. I didn't have a chance to go through data, which is my first step, and to list some of the things that would help me to say what the attitude of the people are towards the JLP and the PNP. But one clear attitude was the voter turnout in the last election. According to what I was reading, looking at it this morning, it was 37% of eligible voters turnout last election, which was in 2020. And of that number is 10.5% of the adult population who vote. So it's one of the lowest turnout since 1983. That's a big indicator of where things are at. My question is, tell me why people voted in those who did vote. And that's the other thing. I couldn't look up how much of them was youth, how much of them was middle class. I can find that information, but it would take me more time. There's no way I could do that in 2 or 3 days. I would have to go in and find some sources. But my assumption is that if the voter turnout was low, it probably was even lower among the youth, people under 30. I don't have no data to support it, but that is a very big, that's a reasonable assumption that among the youth, the voter turnout would be even lower. WhatsApp video. The second important indicator that I'm familiar with is the extent to which very poor, lower class, working class youth have been able to enter the high school system to get good basic education with the intention of going to university. I make that point because a lot of the talk is that education is one of the factors that help change one social, situation. And if you can get into a school that give you an education to get a university degree, it's like a roadblock. There's no channel, there's no valve or situation that would help you get through. And I'm using the last, they don't call it common entrance anymore. I forget the name now. The results, I mentioned it in the last meeting, but I have a granddaughter who just qualified, but she going from where? She going from St. Andrew's Girls, the little school, a private school, and she going to Campion, which is considered, Campion and what the other one name up on Constant Spring Road there?
Eden?
No, the Catholic one.
Holy Childhood.
No, man, Catholic, up on Constant Spring Road there. Where's Pure Girls? Pure Girls.
In front of the post office.
Queens.
Immaculate.
Queens.
Immaculate.
Yeah, Immaculate.
Immaculate. Because when I was in school at JC, the girl, that was the top one in terms of all girl. And then you have JC, of course, and you have KC and so on. But the results show that is only a very small percent of, even when I was championing the cause of the education system, one of the demands we made was to abolish the new secondary school, amalgamate them and make them into traditional high schools. All they have done is to do that in name. There is no real transformation of the content, the teachers, the standard of living, because education don't only take place in school, it takes place at home too. Picnic, go home and there's no light or no desk to study on. It's very hard to perform at the same level as a student who go home and have a own little studio or a own little place where he can do homework. And so education is a way that used to be, at least up to 30 years ago, an avenue that allow for change, for you to move from where your father was maybe to a next step above in the social ladder, so to speak. And I didn't move. My father was middle class. I went to school, and we don't have no difference in terms of background. He was a technical man, learning agriculture and so on. But I only use that as an example that the avenue for the grassroots haven't changed sufficiently to say that, except from the Manley days. My point really is that since Michael Manley, there has been no significant reform that one can say has significantly affect the ordinary working people. So if I go to Trenchtown today, or if I go into Greenwich Farm, where the school is located, it's next door, and look at the houses, how many of those houses are now made out of concrete versus zinc? How many have toilet? Real toilet, I don't mean people going in the bush in those areas, in those ghetto areas. I don't know that there is any significant change or any change at all. So one of the first questions I have is, why was there such a switch? Even though it's not a big percent who voted, there was a significant switch over, a landslide as them call it, for people leaving the PNP and going over to the JLP. The other thing I observe is that the slogan of the PNP was to establish a republic. My God, when I was going to university, maybe 50 years ago, that was a goal, to get away from the Queen or the King of England. That is not now, because changing the country from a monarchy or governor general does not lead to any material change in the populations, in the population experience. The only thing it might lead to, the only thing it might lead to, sorry, go ahead.
In all what you're saying, then the education thing would make the PNP different from the JLP. That's what you're saying?
I'm saying that there is no significant difference. The PNP, only the PNP under Manley was committed to abolishing the distinction between the secondary schools and the traditional high schools. That's one of the things that the union was demanding. Even the legislative things like student council, like parent teachers association being on the school board. I would pay any money if we did a survey now. Most of those groups are dysfunctional, meaning there's no big meeting, there's no election. In some cases, it's people who know people and them nominate to have representation on the school board. So many of those bodies are not functioning in the current climate. So I'm not saying anything. In other words, there's no real difference between the two parties and their policy. And what struck me is the fact that the PNP in the last election, their big slogan was to become a republic, which is, I don't know if that's going to lead to better housing. It won't. I don't have to say I don't know. The only people that have benefited from the last 30 years is a section of the middle class. I'm sure that there have been changes where some of those people have been able to buy bigger house or get have business, buy nicer car. But for the majority of people, I don't see where the changes have been sufficient to where one can say there is a qualitative improvement in the condition of the people. The question therefore is, since the only time that these changes have occurred is during Manley years, Michael Manley, I don't want any confusion. What is necessary, or is that a goal that the people of Jamaica, that the youths of Jamaica, the working people of Jamaica can set themselves? What's going to be necessary to bring about that change? There is only two views that can come to the fore. One view would say, start a different party that don't belong, that's not PNP or not JLP. And we have experience of that, but I would qualify that suggestion if we have a discussion on it. And the other view says, join the PNP and work inside of the PNP to make it a more progressive party.
Why not the JLP?
Well, I haven't seen any indication or leaders in the JLP who would embrace the kind of change that we are talking about here. I don't see them. I know that the PNP used to have them. I'm not sure if they have them now. I don't see the people who have come to the fore. I don't see any indication that those people represent some of the old guard, that what they used to call the left in the PNP, or the center left in the PNP. So that is
Patrick,
my own. Yeah, that's my.
I'm getting a feed, Patrick, from your radio. You have something on in that place. Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah. So I throw those ideas out. One, the question: why was there a switch over to the JLP? Two, a massive switchover in the last election. That's a very specific thing. Two, have there been any significant transformations? And I'm speaking now things like housing. The significant transformation is road building. If I go back there, I won't recognize the drive to Negril from Kingston. I will see road building, and maybe there are other things. I don't know what's happening with the literacy program. Have they abolished literacy? I do know that there is data on education, and there may be studies done on the impact of change in the last 30 years to bring about social, whether it's with entrepreneurs or people, at the community level, maybe in the countryside. I don't know if there is any illicit activity that have led to such transformation. There may be, because data don't always track that situation. But I remember some people might go into a business, more illicit type of business, and they make money out of it, and it allows them to start business or do other things. I mean, there are some big names in the society who are said to be of that ilk. I just don't know to what extent that has happened, because the Americans are uniform about that. Them cut out any such things. If you go Colombia or any of these other countries that had illicit activity to any extent, they are at the helm of stamping it out, sometimes in order to get some of it. But the fact is that I don't know of that as being a channel that would materially affect ordinary people, even in the countryside. So that is my 2 pence. I will end where I started. You can't swap black dog for monkey. And that's basically how it goes between the PNP and the JLP. No, I don't know that there is any significant difference between them, except for the time when Michael Manley existed. And we don't have another Michael Manley in any of the two parties as we speak. Not that I know of. I was thinking that there may have been somebody, but I don't want to call any name because I'm not close enough to speak in regard to that. So that is my brief introduction or commentary, and I welcome feedback. Thank you very much, brethren. And well, there's no sister in here today.
Patrick.
Yes,
so,
my
Nita,
God.
you need to have women on this thing, you know. It can't be just man alone. We're living in a different time now.
We get into that. Patrick.
Yeah, man, I'm here.
Patrick, John is saying there's no difference between the PNP and the JLP. Yeah. You agree or disagree?
Absolutely agree.
There's
no distinct difference. There may be a difference in approach, but there's no qualitative difference.
No.
No qualitative difference.
Last, you agree?
Yeah, I tend to agree with John, and these are my reasons. It's not just about now, but looking at the last PNP administration and the years before Andrew Holness came to power. If you look at some of the issues that we're struggling with right now, issues like crime, issues with education, issues with employment, issues with housing, there was no significant difference in the PNP's approach to any of these issues, than the present JLP government. And it's not just approach, it was also about success. There was not much more success that the PNP made in any of these areas, different from the Jamaica Labour Party when we consider what was happening. So it's difficult for me to say there's a big difference in what people would be voting for in the JLP as against the PNP. I think what is happening now with the two political parties is because one other thing I did mention, the issue of corruption. When it came to corruption under the PNP, there was no major difference. We had things like traffic guru, we had scandals with the Chinese, right? That the Chinese were giving kickbacks to some PNP politicians to get things done, all kind of stuff. So it's hard to say there's a difference between the PNP and JLP. What people, I think, are hoping for at this time is that the issue of corruption in the JLP is current, the non-performance in relation to crime is current, and they are not doing anything, and people are probably hoping that putting the PNP back in, the PNP might do something different, right? And it's just a hope in my view. The PNP has not demonstrated in through their spokespeople on the different issues, whether it's crime, education, housing, they have not indicated, right, through these spokespersons that they have anything different to offer. That's my honest opinion. I don't hear any of these PNP politicians talking on their portfolios that make us have any confidence that they have anything different to offer. On the question of housing, it's the same concentration on building new housing in new areas and not developing the traditional living areas in the country. You don't have them. You don't have a government right now thinking about redeveloping Jonestown, redeveloping Rosetown, redeveloping Greenwich Town, right? There seemed to be a concentration in vote catching, and the whole idea about building new schemes is about extending each political party's reach to get new votes, right? And abandon the existing areas which are starved for resources and starved for development. So I really don't see much. When it comes to crime, I remember when Peter Bunting was Minister of National Security, there was no success, right? Peter Phillips, they achieved nothing in containing crime, right? So for me, I don't see a difference.
Herb, the question
Right.
is there a difference between PNP and JLP?
Okay. Well, greetings to you and your leader, and our leaders on the panel, and greetings to your listeners. Difference. Look, back in 2016, the Gleaner wrote an article that tried to cast the JLP as switching roles with the PNP, where the JLP was more of a socialist party, and that the PNP had adapted throwaway people from the JLP as well as the middle class. What we're seeing today is a clear proof that that wasn't so, right? And I'm sure the Gleaner would love to take their article back. What you are having today is clearly the JLP being controlled by the PSOJ and elements of the upper class that are pulling strings like the prime minister and the rest of them are puppets on a string. You also see a clear ignoring of the constitution and of the laws of the country by the JLP. So you have a lawless government that's operating in a reckless fashion, and they want the DPP around to keep rubber stamping the stuff that they're doing. They have the governor general already rubber stamping the stuff that they're doing, and we don't know exactly if they're doing it because they do not fear the UK, and certainly they have no fear of the US at this point. But you have a situation where they really don't need to fear anybody out there, but fear the law itself. For the law to catch up to them, you need a strong PNP. And right now, the PNP haven't gone along with the 200-300% pay raises. You don't know what to expect anymore. It's been a big disappointment to the people of the country. And for that reason, there's a lot of doubt right now. And Mark Golden has to really bring himself to exalt in the party, to bring meaning to Jamaica, that he intends to change all of that, and that we can have a PNP that is balanced. Right now, the JLP is not balanced. They're clearly out of whack, and they're doing this constitutional reform to validate themselves and to solidify their positions. So if that tells you where I am on this thing, it's just about where Jamaicans are on this thing. It's confusing, and you don't know who is who, and it has to be sorted out through elections. The people of Jamaica have to make a choice as to what direction they want to go in and which party is best suited to their needs. Right now, the JLP is a clear non-starter to them, but they're trying to see if the PNP can get their act together.
Radigan, same question to you.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you, bro.
Oh, okay. All right. Well,
The difference or the sameness.
all right. Well, first of all, good evening to the panel. Sorry I'm late. Good evening to your listening audience, viewing audience. I just caught like the last 5-10 minutes, but I think I know enough to make a meaningful contribution to the discussion. The first thing is that Last was talking about, Last mentioned about the redevelopment of communities like Rosestone and so on and so forth. I would make the argument that they've never been developed. And so when we talk about redevelopment, I think we should be talking about development. They've never been developed. They were created to house people like you and me. You know that, right? And you can just look at the way that the communities are structured. That's the first thing. So we need to talk about development versus redevelopment. The second thing is this. Regarding that question, all you have to do is don't ask the panel. Don't ask the panel. Ask the people who live Yasso. Ask them. Just ask them if their lives have been better under the PNP, under the JLP. Now, I'll submit to you, when I moved to Waterhouse, this is what this place looked like, except that it wasn't brown. It was new zinc. But take a look at that place. Take a look at that place. That place has been in PNP control from as far back as I can remember, in the 60s, right? Still in PNP control. Look at it. No change. So when I ask the people, when I go down, I ask the people, hey, any development, any change, any prospects? The answers are resounding no. But you know what? They are legacy voters. They don't vote their interest. They vote the party's interest. And so you'll find that the grandfather voted for PNP, the father voted for PNP, the son is voting for PNP, and he's grooming his children to vote for PNP. Now, how does that benefit these people back here? That's the question I have to ask. We need to start gather around our strengths. What are our strengths? Numbers, votes. We don't have the money. Look at what PSOJ has done over the years. They've managed to dictate the policies of the country around money. But there's a sheriff in Mississippi who taught me something a long time ago. Long story short, he said, listen, I would much rather, and he was running in an election, said, I would much rather go over here on this side of the tracks and get $1 from $100 from 100 people, $1 per person from 100 people, then go over on this side of the tracks where the rich people live and get $100 from one person. You know why? Because that $100 from that one person is one vote. Over here, you have 100 votes. We now have to educate our people. I mean, this discussion that we're asking about, is it better or is it worse? That shouldn't be the discussion. The discussion should be, how do we get our people to start thinking critically about the issues that affect them day in, day out? How do we get them to add currency to their votes? How do we get them to hold politicians accountable? That should be the discussion. We should be discussing, okay, as a community, they approach a politician and say, listen, here's our mandate, here's our manifesto. These are the things we want from you. Tell us, can you meet them? And then one of the things is you have to come here. You don't come when you feel like. You come when we call you. And you come here every 3 to 4 months and you explain, where are we? What's the status in terms of providing the resources that we're asking for? Because if you can't provide them, then we will transfer our votes to somebody else. You play the politicians off against each other because you only have two main parties, right? The third party thing is a non-starter at this point. I don't know what it will look like 5 years, 10 years from now, but at this point, it's not a viable option. So what you have to do is you have to collate around your strengths, and your strengths are your votes. Until we have that conversation and get that, embed that in people's minds, we can talk till we're blue over who's better, who's worse. And if truth be told, Waterhouse, you tell me, Nita, you come from Waterhouse, you and I grew up in a Waterhouse. You tell me if Waterhouse better now or back in the 60s, back in the 70s, back in the 80s, back in the 90s. You tell me if now it's better.
Because no, it's not. It's not. It is not.
Okay.
But the question is, are they the same or different? And
Nita,
listen, let me finish. Go ahead, Ratigan.
If your argument is that are they the same or better, just by asking that question, it betrays your thoughts that you're saying that it's not better, because if it was better, we wouldn't have this conversation.
No, so I'm certainly not. I'm in agreement with you. I'm in agreement with you that it's not better. But what I'm saying that when it comes to the parties, the PNP and the JLP, there's some distinction between the PNP and JLP. For one, the question of human rights. I think the PNP is more committed to human rights than the JLP. The rights of the people, protecting the rights of the Jamaican people. I think the PNP as an organization is more committed to that principle.
Nita, there is
can I jump in here? Because I didn't get a chance to fully respond to the answering the question. But the question, Mike, if I may say this, and I understand exactly what Ratty is saying, because in addressing your question, I think the way in which the question is posed it's kind of ambiguous to pose a question that way. But be that as it may, right? You're looking at the parties, right? The two political parties, the PNP and the JLP. But you cannot look at the two political parties in isolation to, how the parties are with the people, or they relate with the people, right? Which is what Ratty is saying, right? Because how they relate to the people is going to reflect itself on both parties. And if you are to look at that, then certainly, right, there's no distinct difference between either one, just as John outlined clearly, right? But what I want to say further to that is that we can look at the history, right, how everything unfolded, right, particularly since the 70s. Because the period that we're really talking about more than anything else is the period after 1972 onwards. Because prior to then, of course, it was a different ball game in terms of, since independence, or so-called independence. What happens is that we saw in the 70s, as John clearly outlined, a whole movement developing, right, around issues which directly speak to people's everyday lives, people's everyday experiences, right, people's issues, right? And we saw, this situation developing as we see the status quo at the time pushing back. I'm trying not to use no political jargon, right, so that we can simplify it as best we can. So what happened in the 70s with that development, right, there was some direction in terms of the government, because the PNP at that time had different elements in it, but it had a distinct left wing, right? It had a distinct center left, right? It had a fairly moderate right wing, and it had an extreme right wing as well, right? But we'll find the extreme right wing was more with the JLP side. Now, what happened, right, especially beginning after the 1980 election, right, we started to see distinct changes taking place, right? And in these distinct changes, we start to see the left moving more to the right, right? We had pretty much overall, coming up through the years, right, a complete demolition almost of the left. And this didn't just happen locally, it happened internationally as well, because the Jamaican situation is not one that happens in isolation or other things, right? And a lot of the behavior that you see among, within these, the political parties in Jamaica, is very much similar to what you see across the board, across the world, right? Especially the Western world, right, as we know it.
But what's the distinction between the PNP and JLP?
There's no real distinction. I already said that. There's no real distinction. I'm just further elaborating to support that point, but I'm saying that there's no qualitative difference between the two.
The point
right?
that you raised, Nito, about
Okay.
a record of human rights, you need to make that concrete. What record of human rights does the PNP have now?
Yeah,
That make it different from the Jamaica Labour Party.
exactly.
I think when it comes to, from Norman Manley up until now, the PNP has always out front when it comes to human rights,
What do you mean by that? Out front home?
Well, United Nations, the role they play.
No. Hold on a second.
Oh,
Hold on a
Jesus.
second. Oh no, if you're going to talk about human rights in terms of,
Talk to him, no?
yeah, if you're talking about human rights in terms of the UN and South African people of the Western Sahara, keep it at home. Keep it at home.
Yeah.
Well, look this, Michael. Listen to this.
Yeah, but we're talking about distinction.
Well, no, you're right. There is a distinction between both parties, but the distinction is only in policy. There is no difference in how they treat people. People like you and me, there is no difference.
Mm-hmm.
There is no difference. It's a distinction without a difference. So you might say, okay, there's a distinction.
Is that attitude to foreign policy you're talking about?
Exactly.
It's a different attitude to foreign policy. It's no different when it comes to
economics.
Right.
No,
but the fact of the matter too is that even then, the PNP has moved more right over the years. Right?
Oh, you mentioned that.
Mikey.
Go ahead.
Michael.
Yeah, I'm here.
One of the things that amuse me about this PNP and JLP thing, if you listen to a lot of the PNP speakers, and a lot of the constituency platforms currently, you'll hear a lot of them say that the JLP is following the PNP program. Isn't that
that
weird?
is true.
That
That is true.
people are expecting that these two parties are different and will be acting differently. And you have PNP people, prominent PNP politicians saying whatever the JLP is doing with the economy and other social policy is, and it is because they are following the PNP program, right? So if you want to give credit to the JLP, you have to give credit to the PNP because they are doing what the PNP was doing. So that alone tell you said the PNP themselves don't see this present JLP as any different from themselves, right?
I understand.
That is how I see it,
really
because if they are the PNP,
I really understand that.
They are the PNP, and they are saying whatever these guys are doing is not any different from what we were doing. They're just following us. Credit us, don't credit them. So if we go and credit them, if they're following the program and we're going to credit them, we're going to also blame them for some of the ills where the JLP are going with. Because one, when it comes to corruption, they were not fighting corruption in any different way than the JLP is doing. We didn't see that. There were a lot of corrupt PNP politicians, right? And a whole lot of scandals. And
let me ask you guys this.
Not administration.
Let me ask you this, all you guys.
Later, can I just
think
one
just
before you ask a question?
Let me ask a question. Just ask a question.
No, I just want to ask you one thing before you ask the question, please.
Yeah.
I have to ask you this. You mentioned human rights.
Yeah.
Now tell me, let's this program is called Waterhouse Vibes and it's
Right,
Waterhouse centric, but sometimes we broaden it.
Yeah.
Now tell me how this thing different you talk about the human rights were under PNP, JLP governments in Waterhouse. Tell me the difference there with human rights.
In terms of police practices, we don't see that
Was
much.
the police acting any differently?
No, hear me. Let me answer Radigan. There was a time in Waterhouse where police respected residents, respect citizens, because you have police that live within the community and interact with the community and what have you. But what I'm saying in terms of the PNP distinction and this question, do you think the JLP would have tolerated DK Duncan or a Tony Sparling within his rank?
No, but Michael, that's a time of Manly. You can't use. We're already agreed that after the Manly years, the question becomes they are no different. And the point that Rattigan is making, which I agree 100%, what are the rights now? Is there any better reform with literacy? Is there any reform human rights with housing? Is there any reform with the police brutality among the youth?
Bingo.
Those are the things where you going to tell me, say, foreign policy, that don't mean none.
Yes, John. And to add to that point you just made, right? And we talked about this just weeks ago, right? We look at the situation right now as it is, right? And we clear the point out that even with a disillusionment with the JLP and the behavior right now and everything does not translate, right, to a support for the PNP, because there's no indication. There's no indication on the side of the PNP that things will be better, right? There's no talk of new policies. There's no talk of new anything, right, coming from the PNP. We talk about this week after week.
Let me throw this back into the pen there. So, in this current condition, would you advise a Jamaican to vote for either PNP or JLP then?
It is not
Because that's
mine
the
to
question.
do.
People, in terms of deciding if they're going to vote, people are saying PNP and JLP, no better Erin, no better barrel. There's no difference
Exactly.
between them. But the
Exactly.
question is, would you advise someone to vote for either the JLP or the PNP? I'm just asking honestly.
I will speak to that too. We have spoken to that too, right? We said that our position right now is what we need to really look at. What are we to do right here and right now? Is ready to speak to the people. We're not speaking to the party for support. We're talking about speaking directly to the people in terms of how they deal with the issues. That's what it is all about.
Nita,
Yes, sir.
remember this. If you
What?
forget anything I've said this evening, remember this. You teach people how to treat you. You teach people how to treat you. And if you show apathy, what do you think the politicians are going to do? They're going to capitalize on it as they've been doing for decades. Patrick is 100% right. Patrick is 100% right. We now need to speak to them so that they can do critical thinking and say, no, we are the power brokers. We hold the power. We can't sell out our vote for $5,000 and a 2-piece chicken and a t-shirt and a cap, baseball cap. And then you put somebody inside and now we are going to make what, $12 million every year for the next 4 years. You sell it out for 5,000.
Yeah.
What kind of deal is that? What kind of deal is that? I give you something. You give me 5,000 and I give you $1 million for 4 years. You give me a one-time payment of 5,000, 2-piece chicken and a t-shirt and a baseball cap. No. And I vote for you and put you in there and you get 12 million every year for the next 4 to 5.
That's nothing
What kind of deal
new.
is that?
That's nothing new.
That's why Patrick is
That's
right.
not-
Point, Nita.
But
That's what Patrick is right.
that's
That's the point. It's
that's
not
what we want to
new.
change, Mikey.
And
Because
you want to change
what-
that.
No,
what has
no. It's not a question I want to change.
what
It's a
has been
simple
happening?
question. It's a simple question.
Mikey,
Go ahead. Relax.
Michael, the question is not as simple as GLP versus PNP. The question has to be about changing the thing from the demands of the GLP and PNP to the demands of the people. What has been happening over the years, as Patrick is alluding to, is that it is the politician, and Ratigan has been alluding to, it is the politicians who hold the power and make the decisions. We want to change that situation to a situation now where the people, whether the PNP now think them is the same as the JLP, we want them to get the message that the people are demand that they be different if them going to vote for them. Right? That
Ratigan is not
how
saying
it should
that.
be presented.
Ratigan
Right?
is
That
not
the
saying
people
that.
want better and
That's not
different.
what Ratigan is saying.
Can I,
Ratigan-
let me
No.
add to that. Let me add to that. What I get from Ratigan, and that I agree with. Where are the people now? What we should be looking towards is what I would call a grassroots manifesto.
Exactly.
That is my name for it. But that is not how we're going to call it out there. We can call it anything.
Right.
In other words, the people are not at the point of saying, I will vote for this a third party. But the people are at a point of saying, I don't want the same old party anymore because I don't get no benefit from them. So we need to identify a grassroots manifesto. That's one option. Where we have a platform, it can hold on one sheet and it says certain things that is in the interest of the people. Right? Whether it's so much water, is so much toilet, so much housing, so much recall. I have the right to recall my MP if I can get 3,000 signature or whatever. In other words, a manifesto that the people say, this is what we want. These are the things that we need, right? So the question should not be posed as to who you're going to vote for. The question should be posed as to who going to represent who going to best represent our
Demands.
interests.
Right.
Okay, Michael, can you comment?
Go ahead, Herb.
Yeah, you know, I'm trying to wrap up as to where things went wrong after the Manley era. And what is outlined largely is that the Patterson era moved the PNP from the far left socialists more to the center left, right? And in doing so, our poorer class of people fell off the scales where they were balanced with the far left attitude. They were no longer on the scales when they moved more to the center. But you have to look at what's been happening as well. Jamaica has had to refurbish its infrastructure. We didn't have the roads to conduct the type of transportation and storage and just-in-time inventory that we needed to have to modernize, right? One of the people that spoke of modernization, not surprisingly, represents Waterhouse with the Chinese making Jamaica one of the largest logistics hub in the Western Hemisphere. That is modernization. But when you're doing this kind of stuff, somebody's going to be the victim. And seeing that the people of Patterson era and consequently with Portia finishing that out, the people became the victim. The masses of people who were the underserved, right? And they totally, had to ignore the underserved in order to survive the various taskings from the World Bank and the IMF. So now that the JLP seized on that opportunity, and the JLP became a representative of the classes of people that were left out. They gave a good spiel, and not only did they give a good spiel, but they introduced corruption as a feature during the elections. And when you are selling out yourself, your community, and your country for $5,000 or $10,000 in Jamaican money, or for chicken back, or for whatever else they're giving you, then corruption is what is ruling the day from then till now. You sold your vote and you gave these guys the right to run the country. Now that they're running the country into the ground, and none of the 70,000 homes that they're supposed to be building, that they propose to use the mill vans that you use to transport goods on board ship as homes. Nobody wants that. They want a decent home. And there's a lot of infrastructure stuff that is being ironed out, and at the same time they have to meet standards from the IMF. So you need skillful leadership and skillful, honest politicians to accomplish what needs to be accomplished. And we know for a fact that this JLP government is the most corrupt government in the history of Jamaica, right? They have no intention of sharing the spoils. If they were
And that
sharing
is
the
an
spoils,
important distinction.
and that is, you're right. That's what is so
And that is
distinctive
an
about this.
important
Yeah, So now we have to say to the Mark Golan, what is your proposal and how you plan to balance all of these things up? Because we need balance. We still have the IMF on our backs. We still have to improve underserved communities. We still have to do things maybe the old-fashioned way, in a skillful way that allow people to share in the spoils, as it were. And the PNP used to allow, individual folks to prosper and turn and look the other way. So do we have to go back to promoting that type of stuff? We clamp down on drugs. We clamp down on human trafficking. We clamp down on weapons trafficking, right? Everything that was making the small man some money, we clamp down on it. So if we clamp down and shut down the gangs and the gang warfare, and people are fighting over the spoils in these gangs, right? The little bit of monies that you make off of the lotto scamming. If you don't pay off all around, then your entire family gonna get wiped out. We can't ignore all these things. These things are intrinsic to what is happening right now in the country, and this government ignores it. I hear the police commissioner talk about who's getting murdered all the time, and then he said his family members, and he knows that was a direct result of the lotto scam. So now, how do you change all of this? You have to do more work with your communities. You have to develop the communities. You can't cut out the social organizations that used to get people to sit and talk with each other instead of at each other. And so we have a problem in reestablishing those organizations that were effective in the communities and effective in keeping the peace. So we're going to have a better balance. And you can't have the politician getting rich and richer and the poor people getting poorer, and there's no investment in communities. We have to go back to the communities.
I hear all the argument, but I'm still saying, one, the PNP is a more democratic party than the JLP.
What that mean, Nita?
It means, for example, as the question I asked you, who the JLP have tolerated a DK Duncan within his ranks?
No, but that don't answer the
But
question.
that was in a different time. DK. Anyway, before you answer that question, I saw a message posted at the bottom here. Can we get those messages? How do I get to see those messages from somebody different, not one of us?
Yeah.
Double click on it.
Where? Double click on what?
The URLs are highlighted for you to be able to double click on it.
No, we do have that option.
I don't see that here.
All right, copy it and paste it into your URL.
No, man, those are the messages from you. There is somebody from Dawn. I see a message from Dawn.
Oh, okay. No. You're talking about from the public, not the private chat.
Yeah, but you see one there. No, you see that, John? I'm putting them up now.
Okay.
What is it? Okay, the wickedness of the politician. That one from Dawn.
I don't know. I'm reading them as we go along. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think it's probably an earlier one. But what I wanted to say, right, to John's question, right, Michael, What John is
Yeah.
basically saying is, right? We're talking about now. We're not talking about the 70s.
I understand what
Right?
he's saying.
Yeah,
No.
but
Hello,
you're
Patrick, Patrick.
you're sidestepping the question by
I
talking
understand.
about DK.
No. I understand what John is saying, but I'm saying whether it's even now you see it in the JLP. The JLP historically has an hostility towards views that are not consistent with its policies.
Can I ask you a question,
You
Mikey?
know, we can go way back. Go ahead.
Would the
Yes, Lass, go ahead.
PNP know? Would the PNP know? Do you think the PNP know would tolerate a DK Duncan inside it? The present PNP.
Of course,
You think they would have
yes.
tolerated a DK
You
Duncan?
see what's happening in the PNP right now?
You think so? And they can't deal
Yes.
with, and they can't deal with
We're
a
in-
Peter
we're in the
Bunting.
Yes, because
They can't tolerate a Peter Bunting.
just a minute.
So
No, Lass,
why you think
Lass,
they would
if I-
tolerate a DK Duncan?
Lass, if you can just
Mikey?
spare me 1 second. Make I put the question a little more sharper.
he spoke to
right?
on the platform.
No, Michael. I think the real question that Lass is asking is, if DK Duncan was to be in the PNP right now, where would he be in the PNP?
Underserved community.
Still, he's
That's what it-
still be in where he's at. Remember,
In this
it's
PNP?
very difficult
In this PNP
to
now?
say where he's at.
In this PNP
Yes.
now, where would he be?
Yes, I think he'll be center left, still same way.
No. I'm talking about, let's say, in the leadership of the PNP. Where would he be? Could he be a general secretary of the PNP in this PNP in this time?
I'm not sure. But I know that
Of course,
he
you're not sure.
would be
You're not only not sure,
still in the
you know
leadership of the
definitely
PNP.
that he wouldn't be.
I don't
It's not just
understand
not
this.
sure.
Why we
You
having
know
this
definitely that he wouldn't
conversation?
be. You know,
This
Micah.
is
You
so
know it.
abstract.
You know it.
Listen,
Go
for
ahead,
listen,
Michael.
There would be no place for DK in this PNP leadership. Absolutely none.
But what?
And
What
that's
about
just
Paul
one
Burke?
example. That's just one example.
You know, what about Paul? What about Paul Burke?
Forget Paul Burke. Forget Paul Burke.
No, Paul Burke is why?
He's still alive,
He's
but
in Paul-
he's
You hear about
nowhere
Paul Burke?
around. Forget Paul Burke. He's nowhere around.
Isn't Paul Burke still? Isn't Paul Burke still active in the PNP? He is.
Doing what?
No, you know if
Doing
he's
what?
active in the PNP now?
Paul Burke still
What is he
active
doing,
in the
Mikey?
PNP, lass.
Do you know
I
if
don't
he's active
understand
in
the
PNP
question.
now?
I know.
He's probably
Mikey, can I answer that question?
John.
Paul
Mikey
Burke
is
was
making a
honest.
case.
What's the question?
Oh, Paul Burke is only relevant based on the ruling of the PNP. Whether DK Duncan, this one, that one, or whatever, is a question of what value do you bring to those who want to run the PNP their way?
Right.
That's the bottom line. This is an abstract question. Duncan just dead the other day.
Yeah.
Why are we asking that question?
Well.
Does the view of a DK Duncan dominate in the PNP? No.
Yeah,
It does not.
Right. Exactly.
Does the view of a Paul Burke dominate in the PNP? No, it does not.
Right.
So the question is answering itself. Life show you that those people are no longer in a position of dominance in the PNP. Their views are not in the top of the PNP, but it doesn't mean that they cannot be a member.
It's a rhetorical question. It's
a
really
rhetorical question.
Right.
Life is showing you that there's no difference. The difference between the two parties is even less today because of good reason.
Yeah.
See, one of the issues is everybody has the ability to tap into social media. And when you tap into social media, you get an instant feedback to whatever programs you support out there. You get instant feedback to whatever you're doing. You have instant feedback to all the scandals. So the party of today, like I said, must be able to manage the environment, manage their communication, manage everything that they're doing, and to constantly give the indicators that they are serving all underserved areas of Jamaica. You cannot say, well, this is a JLP area, I'm just going to take care of the JLP area, because you're going to ignore somebody. Look how many seats the JLP has, and not all the areas that were formerly PNP are being served. So how do you decide how to break things out, right? You have to use social media to indicate to people that, look, we are bringing stuff to you and we're doing it on a rotational basis. And here's what the plan is. But we don't see none of that, right?
Well,
We just see the thoroughfares being created by China Harbor Engineering, and it's passing right by communities. And the communities are not being served anymore by
But
the flow of traffic.
how does that address the question before us?
How
question
does it
before.
address the question, Michael? It tells you that the the party that has the best management style that will assist and aid in the community development is the party of the future, not what's happening right now, because all the development right now is on a national level, and we're talking about bypassing communities. So communities suck out because they don't drive through their areas anymore. So
Or if I can,
the shops and the different stores within the small towns that used to enjoy that benefit when visitors are passing through, they no longer enjoy that because you have a big highway outside, and the people going to use the highway and go from point A to B. Instead of 3 hours to Montego Bay, it's now 90 minutes.
but if I can bring up a point here, which pertaining to what John said in his opening presentation, right? John mentioned about, I think, the last election and 37% voting and all of that, right? Which clearly, right, was showing the level of frustration among the people with the party politics, right? And we have seen what has happened with this JLP government since then, right? Which clearly reflects an even greater frustration among the people. And like I established before, it doesn't translate to a support for the PNP. Right? Now, while that doesn't happen, one of the things you gotta note is this, right? The people are frustrated, totally frustrated now with party politics. Right? They don't see the answers coming through PNP and JLP. That's clearly what is happening. The people are looking for some direction, new direction. That's basically what they're saying. We hear this at every turn. We hear this on Ratty's program. We hear it across the board. Right? The frustration level is at the point now where the PNP clearly does not provide leadership. Right? The JLP, even more so, does not provide leadership. Right? Because they are the party in power. Right? And they are part of the problem. Right? Their role on both sides, clearly, as even Ratty alluded to, is They take their direction from the PSOJ, right? From the ruling class. Who is speaking to the issues of the people? That's why we exist. That's why we exist. That's why we are here.
But I'm still trying to. I'm trying to answer the question, as to how all of what you just said relate to the question, distinction. Is there a distinction between
Because
PNP
you're
and GLP or
yeah, the
not?
way
Let me finish it. I understand what you guys are saying. I do, but I think you're overlooking some things about the PNP. Regardless of the period, the PNP historically is a more democratic party than the Jamaica Labour Party.
So what are we overlooking in this period? This present period we are in right now?
I think you're overlooking the fact that in terms of governance, the PNP is more inclusive than
How you
GLP.
explain that? How you explain
Well,
that?
the Portia Simpson administration was it's like
Portia is not in the PNP right now. He's not in the PNP leadership right now.
no.
Portia is not running the party.
I am saying that historically, when you look at when you match up both parties, yes, historically when you match up both parties.
Yeah, but I asked you matching them up in this period right now that we are in. Not going back. Right now.
In this period, I would say the distinction is minimal just now. Just now, because the PNP has moved to the right.
Mikey, hear my position on this. You heard me?
Go ahead.
There might be a few little distinctions between
tinkering.
the JLP and PNP, but it's not substantial enough. It is not substantial enough to offer the people any difference in the direction of the country.
I agree.
In the direction of their personal development and the development of the country.
I agree.
So if the distinctions between them is not that significant to offer any difference in the direction or development of the country, for me disregard those distinctions. And I'm saying what we should be saying to the people, we need to focus on our demands as people and put it to these politicians that these are our demands, regardless of the distinctions or no distinctions between your parties. We have certain things that we want done in our communities and across the country. And we will only vote for you if you do these things or make it clear that you are different from the next party in fighting crime, and you're different in fighting corruption, and you're different in creating more resources for education. Those things, we need to hear those things from the people. And if there's no difference in what these parties are saying on those issues, there's no way we can vote for them.
Well,
that's what
I think that's one of the challenge Mark Golden faced today, because I think he's going to give an address. And today, Peter Phillips was on the platform, and he's calling for the People's National Party to give the country a roadmap, a national movement to revive the country. That's what Peter Phillips is calling for. So I think they're going to try to answer some of those questions. They have no choice. They have to. Because the dominant thing out there is there's no difference between the PNP and the JLP. So he has to make some distinction. And I think they start to do it.
And Mikey, they can't do it without involving the people, Mikey. It's not for them to get on a platform and say, we're going to do this and we're going to do that.
I
and it
agree. I
have no
agree.
input from the people. They must
I
go to the
agree.
people and have structures that can capture. They have to have structures that can capture the views of the people, right?
I
To see
agree. I
what
agree.
people want and
I
listen
ag-
to the people.
I agree totally with you. I agree totally. They need input from the people. You understand me? But I think we should watch the PNP and watch this guy Golden. Listen to him in terms of his speech this evening because they're up against some challenges.
The
You know, one
main
of which is
one being what
to
is
unite.
in the main one, Nita, is what is in the people interest. That's the biggest challenge that the PNP face. So you have to watch two things. Is it a matter of management? In other words, throw out some little good feelers versus a transformative process that really speak to what the grassroots people need. There's two different things. It's very good to have good PR, you know. Good PR teach you that you must say yes, ma'am, and no, ma'am, and shake hand and kiss up the baby when you electioneering. But when you go back in power, it's a business
The
as
same
usual.
thing.
Yeah.
So the question, rather than say watch PNP, we need to focus on what it is that the grassroots people would what is it that's most critical at this juncture, and at least begin to build a manifesto so that part of the offering that we offer is to be able to put that argument to any party. And the question becomes, if your party or none of the parties are willing to do these things, then we need to look elsewhere.
And to your point, John, to your point, I would add that whatever it is, it has to have built in that process, right? A pathway to the improvement of the quality of life
Yeah,
of
man,
the poorest
that's
people of Jamaica.
that is what we're talking about.
That is precisely what it has to be. Can't be anything less.
Them zinc house behind Rattigan
Right?
cannot be there for the next 30 years.
It done it
Nita.
years. It done it years. It done
We're
it
going to have,
years.
we're
We
going to
cannot
have
be content with that.
Right?
John.
This
We're
is
going to have we're going to have Wilfred move back and clear all of that stuff out and put brand new stuff up.
Nita, let me ask you a question, Nita.
Yeah, go ahead,
When you
brother.
vote in Jamaica, do you vote for a party or do you vote for a person, a politician? Who you vote for?
Well, I vote because our Jamaica set up. You vote for the party.
And therein lies the problem. And I'll give you an example. I live in Maryland, right?
Yeah.
And before we have a governor now who has Jamaican roots, right? But before him, there's a white guy was a governor, a Republican in a democratic state. And if we didn't have term limits, that guy would win from now until thy kingdom come. You know why? Service delivery. The guy delivered. And even though it's a democratic state and this guy's Republican, people voted for him because they said, we have vote our tabletop, our kitchen table.
That's Mr. Hogan, right?
Yeah, Hogan. Yeah. People vote. People love the guy. Love the guy. Unbelievable. But again, you vote for performance. You're not voting for no part, because if it was party alone, he would have never win. But them look and say, all right, give this guy a chance. And when them give him a chance, the man delivered. And them say, I could give him another chance. And the man delivered until the DM walk out of the office. So that's why I'm asking, that's what I'm saying to you. And I don't know how much longer I can preach this to you, is that, and to the listening, viewing audience, is that we need to we need to have a sea change in the way we view politics in Jamaica. Because we view politics in Jamaica through the prism and the lens of legacy. Because here where you are talking about DK Duncan and Patrick John and everybody else are talking about. No. They must say, how does that? How does what DK Duncan did back then, right? How does that put food, Sunday dinner upon somebody's table now, today in a Waterhouse? How? They want to hear about what Hilton is doing. They want to hear about what the current leadership of the party is doing to put food on them table. That's what them care about. Them don't want to. The history is good, right? The history is fine, but there's a place for that, and there's a time for that. And then once that pass, that can't fill your belly. That cannot fill your belly. That cannot send your kids go to school tomorrow. They want to know what is it that you have in your manifesto. What is your plan going from this day going forward? What is your plan? Tell us. And we need to have people start thinking critically about those issues so that they can say, well, you know what? We don't like the plans where you are. Or they can say, you promised that the last election cycle and we don't see it. And so to some degree, I blame the voters because they're not acting responsibly. I blame them to some degree because they have the power. And when are they going to realize that, look, we in charge, we in charge. When are they going to realize that? They keep depending on the politicians to lead, to direct, to guide. And we say, no. They represent. And if you leave them without any directions, they're going to do what they want to do. And when you leave people to do what they want to do, what them do? Them do things in their own interests. Them forget about you. And we cannot afford to keep this going on. We cannot.
The truth of it, though, Ratigan, is that that's how the system. That's how the system work in Jamaica. The mindset that you see is what years and years of this system is what. So the idea of being that you run things, that's not how people think, Them think say, as you call it, word he did use legacy voter, right? The legacy voter is a part of the system in Jamaica.
But you know what, John? I tell you what, and I'm finding this out in my, and what I'm finding out my program is this. A lot of it has to do with ignorance. And when I say ignorance, I don't mean it in a bad way. I mean
no, that's absolutely true.
That them don't know. And that's what I'm finding out on my program, that a lot of people are ignorant about certain things. And some of them arrogant too. But once you start opening up people's minds, right? That's the sea change I'm talking about, so that they can realize what's going on. Then it's different. But if we just continue along this path and say, well, I saw the thing set, then of course there's no change. But if you can show them said, I saw the thing set, but it not half a set so, and guess what? And you set the thing, and you set it. Once you can get people to start think like that, and Patrick said so many times, and I admire him more than him would I ever know it. Because one of the things about Patrick when he come on a bunch of programs is Patrick starts saying, how can we get people to start thinking about change instead of we are talking about the problems?
Right.
Everybody know the problems. Everybody knows that there's a lack of service delivery, no jobs, inadequate, dilapidated housing, inadequate medical services, lack of infrastructure. Everybody know the issues. The question is how many people know how to address them and change them? Or how many people courageous enough to do it? And we need a credit because I'm courageous enough to have a program now where I highlight the issues, but we need to go beyond that. And for a long time, I was stuck in the thing that, okay, make we identify the problem. And then I realized, wait a minute, hold on. Everybody know the problem. Everybody know the problem. I mean, some people articulate it better than others, but everybody know the problem. The question is, not everybody know how to come up with the solutions. And some of the solutions require that you're going to have to break from tradition. Where I see it now is the people, them have in a court, them have a caption, right? It's Mr. A versus Mr. B, or the state versus Mr. B. We need to have a caption where say the people versus the political parties, so that we can say, okay, we're not accountable to us. That's what they need for do. We talk about it, but we don't do it. And so we have to mobilize people. We have to make them understand. Look, right now on my program, we're going through the Constitution. You'd be amazed at how many people don't even know about their rights and responsibilities and freedoms under the Constitution. They don't know. Human people write and say, me never know say at that it say, next week I'm doing a program called Who is the Real Bro God and Will He Stand and Be Recognized? And I'm going to do it constitutionally and show that the person who we are called Bro God is not the real Bro God. Right? And the people are going to be amazed when I walk them through the Constitution. And when we go through it, we get chapter and verse. In fact, we put up the Constitution. I will go through it chapter and verse so people can see. Because the first step towards real change is understanding. If you don't understand the whole thing, then there's no change. It will be business as usual. And we cannot afford to have our people go through this. Nita and I, we escaped the bondage. Patrick, the bondage of poverty in our house. We escaped that. Right? And now where I see it is that it's my passion and it's also my pleasure to make sure that whatever I endured, whatever we endured, the people back there, they have a better future. It cannot be the same future. We left the decades ago. And when we go back, it's the same thing.
Same thing.
Same thing.
Same thing for the next 100 years.
And you know what is also true is that none of us on this panel has a vote in Jamaica.
You know why? Because in September of 2016, I was at a town hall meeting in Queens, New York, right after the JLP won. And on the stage, we had the Prime Minister, Nigel Clark, and some other dignitaries, including Minister Kamina Johnson-Smith. And I remember they made a pledge to the people in that town hall that one of the things they're going to explore is they're going to explore the idea of having people do absentee ballots, people in the diaspora, give them the chance to vote. You know what happened? It died. We don't hear anything more about it, even though they established an office, a diaspora office within the ministry, and they have representatives in Washington. They have a representative in Washington, D.C. But ask them, what happened to this promise? Because, hey, we know it. A promise is a comfort to a fool.
But it's what politicians do. It's what politicians do.
Second nature. Second nature.
But I think this is an important issue we need to put on the agenda, the vote, because we can sit here and talk from now until thy kingdom come. You know, these politicians are not going to take us serious. But if they know.
Hold on a second. Hold on a second. There is an organization recently formed called the Non-Jamaica Legal Defense Foundation, of which Herb Nelson is a board member, right? That organization seeks to dispel the notion that all we do is talk. That organization, and we're asking people, we're telling people, look, including people who, the naysayers, we're saying, put your money where your heart and your head are. Put your money there. Donate to this organization because we're going to go after governments. When I say governments, here and in the future. And we don't care about party. We care about people and production. That's what we care about. Take care of the people, produce, and we're fine. As long as you don't, and as long as you abuse the people, we'll be there to defend them. So the idea of a talk shop, right? All our guys in the diaspora, all of do is just talk. That era is over. I don't know what other people are doing. Go ahead, Patrick.
But a extension to your point, Ratty, right? And to answer your question, Michael, it's really what you're asking is really about defining our role. And it's something which I keep saying, right? Our role here is to bring clarity to the people, is to support the people. We don't look at this thing in terms of casting a vote when bring about change, you know. That's not it. It's not about casting a vote for bringing change. We're talking about speaking to the people. We're not speaking to politicians here. That's not what we're doing. We couldn't care less about what the politician wants to say. We are focused solely on the people, bringing clarity to them, right? Bringing the discussion around integrity. It's like when you deal with the Constitution, right? We have to go right down to the nitty-gritty, right? In making them understand the basics of a constitution, its purpose, right? Define it, clearly define it in a way that they can understand, right? And we gradually build from there, right? And go in terms of how this is gonna improve the quality of your life, right? Because I'm concerned about the party.
The idea, Nita, that you would the idea of saying that the voting should be on it, it tells me that you're dissatisfied with what's going on in Jamaica in terms of the people enumerated, the eligible voters, and the fact that they don't cast. Enough of them don't cast their votes. And so you're dissatisfied with that, because if we had large voter turnouts, I doubt we'd be talking about, well, we need to vote. If people were objective in their voting practices, I don't think we'd be having this discussion. But
no,
they're not.
No,
they're not. People are not, and they're not voting either.
They're not voting.
But one thing I can tell you is this government. I can't speak to this. I can't speak to this present composition of the PNP, but I can't speak to the government because I was there when they made that promise, and I can tell you this: they will never. Not this composition of leaders in Jamaica. They will never allow the diaspora to vote. Never.
No.
That's the way I feel.
That's obvious.
I think Radigan, I think the diaspora, has been weak in formulating that demand of the government. They have not been pushing that demand as strongly as they should, I believe. Right? Probably you know more, but I don't believe they have been pushing that, because this is something that has been bandied about for a number of years. Right?
I know when I saw Delano Franklin here, he was very committed to the vote. That's what he expressed to me. So one could say there's a sentiment out there. There's a recognition within certain quarters that the diaspora should have the vote. Likewise, there's a recognition that there should be one of the Senate seats, should be the diaspora.
Well, let me just say one quick thing. I got my screen froze, so I couldn't hear what was going on. But let me just say a piece about the diaspora. No, prior to 2020, the diaspora, as we know it, people living overseas, whatever, their point of contact in Jamaica was through UA, right? Yeah. And the whole purpose of it was, well, people who wanted to go back home and make a contribution or whatever, you could reach out to these folks and arrangements would be made and so on and so forth. In 2020, this government decided to institute something called the Global Jamaica Diaspora Council. And what did they do? They appointed a lot of the members in 2020, and some of them were elected. No, if you have a government that's controlling the diaspora, what issues do you think that they will raise? What issue? Who's beholden to who? And then also they set the agenda. They, meaning the government, sets the agenda, the meeting times, all that stuff. And our representative in the Northeast, I said to her, don't you have an issue with that? Who do you represent? Do you represent the government of Jamaica? But what I've discovered over the years is that a lot of people, and I'm not including this young lady because she just got the position, but a lot of these people, they do it for self-aggrandizement. They're self-absorbed, because what they want to do is they want to be able to go to the cocktail parties. They want to be able to get that order of distinction.
Networking.
Huh?
Networking.
Yeah, they want to be able to do that, get some contracts, some deal. That's what it's all. It's not about us in the diaspora.
Was it like that during Delano Franklin tenure?
No, it wasn't like that.
It wasn't like that.
No,
it changed with the coming to office of this government, and
that's true.
That is another distinction.
Yeah, but here's the thing. But here's the thing. But Michael, you have to be careful how you say distinction, because remember I told you that there's something called a distinction without a difference. Because under the PNP, when I think hold on a second, there's something called the Jamaica Progressive League way before that. But then the organization you're talking about, That was mostly left up to people if they wanted to go back to Jamaica, and it wasn't dynamic. It wasn't. I didn't see an outreach. It was mostly informational. If you wanted to go back to Jamaica, then here's a group that you can reach out to, and they can tell you. It's mostly informational, right? So it wasn't like they were doing a lot of things and say, okay, we're building the diaspora.
But even the Jamaica Progressive League was more directed at
Is there a
support
way?
for the then government.
Right.
You had both the Progressive League
Is there a
and
way
the
of
Freedom
us?
League at the time.
Last,
What's that, last?
Yeah, I'm saying, is there a way of us like reaching out to people, some people we know and so forth, the different places, in trying to form some kind of organization independent of all of those that can make demands about these things?
That's a very timely question, because here's what
that's the
happened last
foundation.
week. Here's what happened last week. Last week, the PNP, I think, announced, or at least they had a magazine come out. They have their own diaspora group, right? That happened last week. And since that happened, the Jamaica government, through the ambassador, they're reaching out to people in the diaspora, trying to counter that, the formation of that group right now. So the diaspora is completely fractured right now. It's completely fractured. So to answer your question, if can we do it, there's another group that was just formed, that just announced like last week. Just last week. And of course, our group.
So we can form one and try campaign to we can form one and get a piece of the pie.
I think what everybody is ignoring is the fact that we can now communicate with various fractions directly. And this is the medium that we do it through. We do it through the internet. We do it through programs like this, right? So we can reach out to anyone in any community, regardless of whether the community is underserved or not. So the bottom line is we're communicating. And this don't take it for granted, because this is how you change people's minds and you influence various groups. And if you're trying to influence various groups as a diaspora, what the diaspora has done is replace the opposition in parliament, because we're the only ones that seem to oppose the crap that's going on. And we fight against it, and we speak out against it, and now we're about to sue a whole bunch of people over different aspects of what they're failing to do, or what they're are undermining the system in Jamaica, radically. So the bottom line is we're in communication, and you can't stop that. There's nothing they can do to stop that. So you don't even need to form any group.
Right. So in other words, what you're saying, Herb, is that, to Lass's question, is that the group is here. The group is already here.
Yeah.
And I said, we are the change that we seek.
Yes.
We are the change we seek.
Yes.
Yeah, but just to say that I remember belonging to it before I moved to Nashville, which was like about 6 years ago. There is a group in Florida, and there would be a group where you are, and each of us who is overseas, there is a chapter of the diaspora in those states. So my this is something we can implement concretely, which is to connect with them in our individual states. I know the one in Florida is fairly huge.
To do what?
And it's very active. The diaspora.
To do what? Connect with them to do what?
To first to find out how it's function, and secondly to see how we can play a role in influencing the direction of that group. That's a very simple thing we can do at this level. I mean, we have our agenda as a group,
Right.
But we're not decided on exactly how we want to develop at this level. I mean, I would like to, if I could suggest one thing, which is to, can you circulate the comments that came in from all the different listeners?
No.
You don't have a way of doing that?
No.
Oh,
That's on YouTube, right?
That's YouTube, yeah, live.
So if
you go on
YouTube,
you'll
even
see
after
them
the program, John, you can
you'll
access
see them
it.
there.
Yeah.
Oh. The second thing I thought we were leaning towards was this idea of a grassroots manifesto. I don't think we're leaning towards a third party at this point, but we are definitely leaning towards a grassroots manifesto.
Now, what is a grass? You use manifesto. What exactly you mean? Because
it would be
exactly
a grassroots. Yeah, a grassroots manifesto is basically capturing the 10 or 15 most important demands that are coming from the grassroots people, whether we want to use Waterhouse. I don't think that if we went to Greenwich Farm, it wouldn't be anything different. So one of them would be housing, but we need to make it concrete. Another one is literacy. Another one is how you get how the people's views is taken into account, not just when election time comes, but on an everyday basis. And a third one that I'm sure most grassroots people would agree with is the right to recall of your MP outside of election time.
And our councillor.
And the councillor. Right. I mean, I'm not writing the document. It's just to identify what are the big issues that the communities face and where we can put teeth into it. That's what our role is, to help put teeth into it, to make it something that people will be attracted to and drawn towards.
Yeah.
At this point, the idea is to get, whether we have it as a thing, a petition that people sign, or we have it, as a thing that we send out online and we can get it signed online. But it would need some way in which we can generate support around a set of demands.
Directed at the Jamaican government?
Access to proper education.
Directed at whomever. PSOJ, PNP, JLP, the church. It doesn't matter. Anybody of influence. If they said to you, if we said to them, we need your help to get some of these things done. If you don't do them, you know the people that do them. And we can make a broad coalition around it that is geared to getting those demands executed, so that we don't wait 30 years to find out if the same zinc house is still existing.
I want to hear Radical and Herb talk, because what you are suggesting sound like an organizing effort. I have nothing against it, but when it comes to organizing, I sort of know where you head at, John.
No. This is not organizing.
But Radical and Herb, I would like to hear your feedback to what John just said about a grassroots manifesto. We start working on that sort of thing, and then use it to mobilize community supports or what have you. What you guys take on that? Last, you can chime in.
Whatever decision is made, it comes with another allied component, which is funding. If you want to project, uh, hey, One Jamaica Legal Defense Fund, why did we need it? We needed it to be effective. We needed to make change. We needed to get enforcement done of the current laws that are available in Jamaica to fight the corruption that's in Jamaica. That's why we've went with the One Jamaica Legal Defense Fund. So that whatever you want to start, whether it is a grassroots program that generates ideas, that you get ideas from the people and you put them into practice, you're going to need funding.
And I think honestly, I hear John reasoning, but I think right now a practical thing we can do just now is to support the One Jamaica Defense Funds. We should focus on that and try. This is just my idea. That we focus on building the One Foundation out, mobilize the community to support that, because that's the vehicle we have right now. We should rather gonna establish.
Sure.
Right,
Rather
but last
than
time,
creating
we
something
asked
new.
if we could get a copy of
Mikey,
it. I don't know
can
what
I-
it is.
Last, let me answer.
Can I say something on that, Mikey?
Last, hold a minute, last. Let me answer. Radigan, can you respond to what John is asking about the documents for the foundation? You need to get some information about that.
You're muted, Ratty.
Yeah, we have the
Mute,
articles
you
of
mute, John.
incorporation.
Ratty.
And we
I
also have,
am muted.
no.
No, man, go ahead.
You're good. You're good.
Yeah. Yeah, we have the
No, no,
articles of incorporation. We have the articles of incorporation, and we also have the bylaws, and they're very simple documents. What I'll do, John, is that
Send me on the email.
right, I can send you an email, or I can have you go to the website.
Yeah,
that we're
send me
putting
the
up.
link
I'll send. All right, fine, no problem.
to the
Michael,
email.
can you put up the web?
Yeah.
Can you post the website, Michael? So
No, I don't have it here with me.
The challenge. I get to Nita, so we can put it up next week. But I'm challenging.
But I really think that's what we should focus on. Building out the One Jamaica
I
Legal
want to say
Defense.
something.
Go ahead, Lass.
I want to say something on that. I agree with John. We say more than one occasions on this program that we don't just want this thing to be just about talk. And what John is suggesting is not taking anything away from the One
legal
Jamaica
fund.
Defense
Right.
Fund. What it is doing is concretizing some of the things that we have been saying should be on the agenda of any government, right, or any politician. It is just concretizing that and putting it in a document so that anytime we talk on this program or anytime we talk and the people, we can say this is one of the demands that we are proposing. It ties into the constitutional changes that we are proposing and the constitutional discussion. It is a way of saying to people, when we talk about the Constitution, look at our demands. These demands are demands which should be covered in the Constitution or covered in the political platform. It's I don't see it as anything different than what we are saying here, just putting it in a document as some demands that we can always point
operationalize
to.
all of that?
How
do we operationalize all of that?
All right. I if I can say this,
we either can.
I definitely take John's point and what Lass just said, right? And this is what come to mind as I think about it, right? Take for example with Ratty's program, right? And the discussion around the Constitution, right? I take it that, you know, like he said, it's gonna be a series of discussions, right? From time to time, right? And this is gonna be ongoing for some time. I think something like that, for example, we'll be charting it, right? Charting our points coming up out of that in terms of what really needs is our position as far as, you know, what is needed in bringing about a new constitution or whatever it is that we think needs to be included in the constitution, right? And have it so documented that it becomes our formal position, right? When that time comes, and we can present it as our template, right? Towards bringing about a new constitution, right? And that's just on the constitution itself, but certainly it can relate to other matters as well, right? It might relate to education in Jamaica, right? It might relate to healthcare in Jamaica, right? So it can address different issues, but at the same time, it's gonna be something we're coming out of our discussions and out of our work with grassroots people, right? We identify these as, you know, workable things to be included in any government policy going forward.
You know, we talk about the diaspora and what contribution we can make to our people back home, and we're gonna be met with severe resistance. We have been meeting with resistance, but I think if we structure it properly and we get them in a position that's indefensible, I think that's the strategy. And I'll give you an example. No, Jamaica has a serious crime problem. And for years, I've been telling them that, listen, you know, there are people out there that I know that we can reach out to them. We can do all kinds of things. They ignore me completely. Starting tomorrow and for the next 3 or 4 days, there's a international conference in Jamaica. It's the Drug Enforcement International Conference. It's going to be held in Montego Bay. They're going to have about 120 countries represented, mostly, primarily, law enforcement officials. The whole purpose is to network and to come up with strategies to deal with to fight against drug organizations, right? Now, it's interesting because here's what happened. Not too long ago, we had a coke find, not a bust, at the Ian Fleming Airport in Boscobel, St. Mary. Up to now, we have yet to hear about any arrest coming out of that, even though we have been promised arrests by high-ranking JCF officials. Every time they have a press conference, they're asked, they say, "Oh yeah, arrests are imminent." So far, nothing. Then there's an article, I think it was yesterday or the day before, where I think it was President Biden or somebody.
I think there's one in today's paper.
Yeah, where they say Jamaica is a significant transshipment point for drugs, and they're saying this on the eve of the conference. The conference starts tomorrow, right?
That's why they're saying it.
Yeah, which is terrible. It's terrible optics. And then the person who's representing the delegation from South Africa I know him in a professional capacity and also as a personal capacity. Outstanding person, right? He's in charge of their version of the FBI. I've worked with him. I know him very well. He's going to Jamaica. I've said, and I've made it clear to the Jamaican government, I said, listen, in fact, I spoke to him up to this morning because he was supposed to have left yesterday or arrive in Jamaica yesterday, but when I spoke to him today, he was on his way to the airport. And I talked to him about, look, can we establish a bilateral where you can do secondment. You can send your people to Jamaica to help the Jamaican, the JCF to develop. Or we can have people from Jamaica go to South Africa. The purpose is, you see, when it comes to cash in transit heists, like the beryllium robberies, bank robberies, homicides, these guys are experts at it because guess what? They have the same problems that we have and they've been working at it. The difference, though, is that they're applying different methods. It's not like Jamaica where you just talk, and nothing gets done. These guys, they're using intelligence-led investigation. 2 weeks ago, 2 weeks ago, a little over a week ago, I think. They were looking at a gang, right? They managed to get all 18 members of this gang in one spot. One spot. There was a shootout, all 18 died. When they searched the place, they found explosives, they found weapons, they found this, they found that, evidence that these guys were planning something huge, right? And now I've said to the Jamaican government, listen, I've greased the skids for you. And I was speaking yesterday personally to the police commissioner. I said, I've greased the skids for you. You go see this man. This man is willing now to establish a sister relationship between the South African Police Service and the Jamaica Constabulary Force. He's willing to do that. I've briefed him on all this. Just go see him. Watch and see what's going to happen now. They won't do it. They won't do it. They will not do it because here's what happened. If it's done, they're afraid that, it's going to look like Rattigan is in charge of the police because now he's directing traffic and he's setting up his international links to get things done here. And if they don't do it, I can then turn around and say, these people are not serious about crime. They're not serious because here it is that you have a top crime fighter who's willing to help Jamaica in Jamaica and they don't approach him. They don't approach him. So,
well, let me ask you this, Ratty. Because I was listening to you talk about it.
Hold on, Bridget, because we have gone over 2 hours now.
Yeah, but I just want to ask my question pertaining to what you just
going,
said.
Man.
Go ahead.
Right.
Go ahead, Patrick.
Yeah. Who is behind the organization of this conference?
US.
It's what it is. It's a bunch of countries that have issues with the drug organizations, and they've had it. It's been around for a little bit, and what they do, they move the conference centers. I think annually. So our
what's the name of it? What's the name of it?
Yeah, I'll tell you 1 second. Hold on. It's international. Hold on 1 second. Let me just pull it up. I think it's called IDEC. Hold on. Okay. Hold on. Brother. Okay, here we go. It's called IDEC, International Drug Enforcement Conference. Something like, if you Google it, it'll come up. It's IDEC. Mm-hmm. And it starts, actually, it's will be in Jamaica on the 19th. It starts actually, I think, the 19th to the 17th. I think it starts Tuesday. So they give all the international people time to come in and get refreshed. And all this, man, and the thing is, it's a ready-made situation for them because these guys, I'm telling you, these guys love Jamaica like it's going out of style because they say, look, we remember during the apartheid days when Jamaica was the first country who opposed the apartheid regime.
Under Manley.
And I'm right.
And that is another distinction.
No, we're talking about international.
No,
we're talking about
Michael Manley.
Yeah. And the second thing is that Peter Tosh, Bob Marley, Bunny Wheeler, Burning Spear, Culture,
all of them go down there
than they are in Jamaica, right?
Yeah.
Because those they listen to those guys' music as inspiration when they were in the fight, and so this is ready-made for them. This man is coming with his heart full of love for Jamaica. In fact, he has a brother. His first name is Reggae. That's his given first name, Reggae. So this is
Rattigan. The truth is, there is egos involved with something like that. If you invite a man from a different country for play a role in a new thing that's starting in Jamaica, I can just see the personal politics that going on. So it's not so simple. However, it don't answer the question about the what did we call it again? The grassroots manifesto.
Yeah, well, all right. The grassroots manifesto. Here's my take on the grassroots manifesto. My take on it is that it's fine to do that because Nita was mentioning that it's going to take some organizing. It's going to take a lot of organizing, actually. And that's what we're about. We're saying yes, because you know what happened? The people are disorganized. They're disorganized. And so you have to find a strategy where you can bring people together and then you can educate people. And at the same time, when you're educating them, you tell them, look, this is not a one-way street. We're telling you that these are our thoughts on paper. Now you read that thing, you get an understanding, and then you tell us. Because one of the things that I learned is that over the years is that you're not the end all be all of it. You may have an idea, but you also need to talk to your audience and find out from them what's affecting them, what would they like to see. And I'll give
That's
you
right.
another example. Now, the
So
FBI
that's the
example
beginning.
now the FBI example I can give is that the people we would especially towards the end of the year when we had money for training, they would have to spend it. So they would say, hey, so that we have money to spend. So they grab some training manual off of the shelf, give it to some guy in the international training unit and say, okay, go and provide this training to them. You'd show up in the country, and then the people would say, what's this? We don't need this. This is not what we need. But for us, it's checking a box. For a lot of people, State Department is checking a box, and so they would do it. But then I realized, wait a minute, for it to be meaningful, you have to talk to people and say to them, what is it that's bothering you? What is it that you need help with? Right? And so the organizing, it's a two-way street. And I agree that the manifesto, I have no issues with it. But then John, let me ask you this. You finish with the manifesto. And remember, we just talk about egos, people seeing us trying to come in and trying to influence things. How do you make a forceful and a successful presentation of that manifesto to cause change in Jamaica? How do you do that? Given the fact that these people are they're gonna say, you live a foreign and you come down and try to tell me how to run things in Jamaica. How do you get around that?
Okay. We're going to have a lot of questions to do with executing a manifesto. What the manifesto represents is a broad set of demands that touch on the people's everyday life. Education, crime, unemployment, housing, corruption. We may add 4 or 5 more things, but clearly it cannot be 50. It's more like 10 or 15 items. The purpose of those 15 items is to get public support. That's what a manifesto means. Is to cause discussion. Is to get people thinking along the lines of these things. And it can be presented to Tom, Dick, and Harry. There's no money involved with that. The most it takes is time. Because we have social media, we have something, it can go online, whatever. We can present that to the MP. We can present that to the leader of the opposition. We can present, in other words, my thing is, let's start with a set of demands that people can buy into. It will include demands related to the Constitution, but it's not solely about constitutional change. For example, the right to recall is a right that any grassroots person will see the value. Because we have the main line and then we explain each one. If we say crime, what we talk must be done with crime. Right? So technically, this is a at the most is a 2-page. If you can't hold upon 2-page, it don't make sense.
But John,
yeah.
do you plan on do it in collaboration with a Jamaican-based organization, or do you plan to do it from the diaspora?
No. This will be something where at the community level, hopefully, we have people here from both Jamaica and from the diaspora. My thing is, it must have sufficiently broad input, especially at the community level in Jamaica. Should not be primarily a diaspora document. It's primarily a Jamaica
Can
document.
I say something on that?
Yeah.
Can I say something on that?
Yeah, man.
Can I just say something on that?
Yeah. Go ahead.
I would see this Radigan as possibly a document that could form the basis of one program, in that it is something we present to the people to get their to see what they think about these things. It wouldn't be a final, in my how I am perceiving it. It
Right.
wouldn't be a final document that says this is what you should demand. But it's something to stimulate discussion around, and we could use it as a that could form the basis of one program or two programs.
Right. The question, I guess the question I was really asking is, granted, it's not a final document. It's just to stimulate discussion. But how do you do it through like a NIA? Do you do it through some civil society group? I mean, how is it presented to them? By whom? From whom? Do you form an alliance in Jamaica and say, listen, because there may be people already doing something like this. I don't know, right? So the question is, you don't want to reinvent the wheel. So you find out,
I
okay, is anyone doing anything
no.
similar?
Oh, I'm seeing it. I'm just seeing it from our perspective. Just like how we come here and discuss and make proposals, I am seeing that document as part of our as proposals coming out of the discussions that we've been having, right? Because we helping people to be able to formulate what they want government to do in a concrete way. And that document or set of proposals would just be to help people to put their ideas and their demands in a more concrete way to put to government, right? And it
Here's
will be part of,
no, last. Here's why. Sorry to interrupt you. Here's why I'm asking the questions, because
yeah.
I've looked at the 2016 manifesto for the JLP. I've looked at the 2020 manifesto
Mm-hmm.
for the JLP, and I've looked at the UIC's manifesto. And a lot
Mm-hmm.
of the things we just talk about, they're included in those three manifestos. So
Okay.
that's what I'm saying. The wheel, we don't have to reinvent the wheel. If you just look at those three, a lot of the things we talked about. I think even I think the UIC might have had. I think they may, not sure. I think recall is in there. I know recall is not in the JLP's manifesto. But if we look at the manifestos for both, three political parties, I think everything that we need is there. So then you just pick and choose from it where you want. And then the question now is, how do you sell that to the people and have them act upon it? Because from time immemorial, manifestos have been coming out and they're just promises and nothing, people they don't deliver on it. So the question then is, okay, to put those pieces together, to get the contents together, that's easy, right? The question then is, how do you get people to act on that manifesto?
And on that note, brother man, comrades, we have to bring this discussion to a end.
My
And
Go
take
ahead. You
us
mean
just
a
a minute
close?
to a close.
Yeah, Michael, in hearing that, when we established the One Jamaica Legal Defense Fund, we said it was not only for legal matters only,
True.
right? Now, from what Ratty is saying, I can foresee us saying to NIA, saying to JAMP, saying to the Jamaica Justice Organization there, right?
Advocates Network.
Advocates and the Advocates Network. We will be prepared to fund this effort if your organization is able to marshal the necessary support and have a member of parliament to introduce this in the parliament in a bill, in the form of a bill, right? Because this will be coming, yes, coming from the diaspora, but the intent is to help and impact underserved communities, right? We're not going to do anything for Beverly Hills and Forest Hills and all them communities. Our impact is underserved communities, whether it is in the rural parish areas or in the underserved areas within Kingston and St. Andrew. So we have to know what it is we're aiming at and how we intend to help fix it. Right?
Okay. Yeah. I think we have to continue this discussion into next week. And next week would be wonderful because Mr. Hilton, MP Hilton, will be joining us. He'll be joining us. So some of the questions we can pose, and but I think what John is saying is something we have to really think it through.
No,
think it through.
because hear me now.
No,
Sorry for
hear
cut
me.
you, Mr. Chairman.
see?
Sometime in life you can't see 10 years down the road, We have to start somewhere. And the more that the members here talk, is the more I see this as a viable program. It
Yeah,
don't
and
matter that
but the
other
more
people put it.
but the more they talk, also I am seeing that such a program could feed into the One Defense Foundation, and we strengthen that because that is already established here.
It's an option.
That could become a mechanism to get to people in Jamaica.
Yeah.
Rather than the Waterhouse vibes. One could say One Jamaica Foundation register here. You understand what I'm saying? It's something we have to think about. Because I think the priority on our part should be building out the foundation. Because we have to get it onto the lips of the Jamaican people. It hasn't done before. This is something new, and it's going to take some work. It's going to take some work to convince the Jamaican people that them should go in this direction. But we have spent
I like something you just saying, Michael. I like something you just said. The idea will come to where you say something about One Jamaica Foundation, One Jamaica Diaspora Foundation. I like the sound of that.
I know. All right. We can continue with that next week. Right now, we have spent 2 hours and 21 minutes, exploring this. And I love the discussion. I love it. I really love it. And, I hope the listeners enjoy the conversation. One thing I should point out, is that on this platform, we don't curse no one. We just engage. There's no need for us to call folks some stupid name or what have you, Give on a Sunday evening, people can come and listen to a clean conversation between brethren. Only thing missing is the woman. No woman at the floor. So I don't know if John can help us work on that.
Make a call. Anyone out there,
Probably
please step
Radigan,
up.
because Radigan is a man. Radigan run John Hart, when it come to the woman.
No, man.
Well,
Look, I'll yield to John.
yes, all right. John, you have
John
to
retire now.
Well, we're going to leave it to Patrick. All right.
We're not the same group with John,
Yes, I'm out of here, gentlemen. Thank you very much for the conversation. Thank you. And we can go listen back to the People's National Party Conference. Make sure you listen to that.
Yes.
Because MP's coming here next week to discuss that.
All right.
Thank you very much, bro.
Yeah, man. Take care. Have a good week.
Yeah, man.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Cool.
Yes. Okay. Oh, let's go now.